High school can be tough. We'll help you navigate some of the areas you need help with, including the college preparation process by providing advice for families. Every student is different and has a unique path. That's why we created this podcast. Our innovative and intentional approach builds confidence in the individual student. Listen each week to find out how students can score better on college placement tests with techniques and methods that build confidence, beat test anxiety, and identify strengths within each student. You're listening to Simply Smarter with hosts Caleb and Jill. Check out our blog at GetSmarterPrep.com for more college prep-related topics.
Setting realistic expectations when it comes to the ACT is important. Why? Just like any other scenario in life, such as a big test, a speech, a business meeting, or an interview, you have to prepare. Being prepared gives you confidence, and confidence allows you to do your best given the situation. On today's episode, we discuss how you can properly manage expectations when it comes to the ACT. Welcome back.
Good morning, Jill. How are you?
I'm great.
I guess it's actually technically afternoon, isn't it?
Good afternoon, Caleb.
Good afternoon. Today's just flying by, I guess.
It is. It really is. Yeah, it is. A big week for you, by the way.
Is it?
It is.
Is it, though?
Birthday week.
Oh, shoot.
How old are you going to be?
Let's just say I'm officially in my late 30s. You can do the math from there.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm not comfortable saying that number yet.
Oh, you're not? Come
It feels kind of weird.
Age is just a number.
I'll be 37.
Okay, there it is.
This weekend.
Be confident in that answer.
I like it.
You know, you tell your students that. Be confident in your answer.
There it is.
Be confident in your age.
You know what is kind of cool about 37?
Nothing.
It's a prime number. That's fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even in odd numbers. Well, I mean, you really like math, so to me that's foreign.
Like
but yeah. Even
how awkward would it be if all of a sudden, like, I realized, oh shoot, so 37 isn't prime, and then I just got that wrong, but it is. Don't worry.
Oh yeah, like you were confident in your answer, but then you're like, wait second guessing yourself in your head,
just like students do on the test.
Yes.
What?
Yeah. Sometimes they do.
A lot.
I know.
A lot.
I know.
Anyway.
I know. So ask me the question that you asked me prior because I want our listeners to think about it.
This is just my brain works in a strange way.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about how, like, I have a good friend in Colorado whose birthday is the 18th of April. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, 18th, that should be either Wednesday or Friday, right? But it's not. It's Thursday. Because for some reason, since I was a kid probably, I've always thought of, like, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Those are even days of the week, right?
And then odd days of the week are
Tuesday and Thursday for sure.
Yeah.
I would also say Sunday and Saturday. But
yeah.
I think you may have a different hot take on that one.
Yeah, I do. So you asked me that question earlier, and I was like, what do you mean different? Like, even in odd days of the week? You're crazy. And then I thought about it. And I was like, well, I really do think Monday, Wednesday, Friday are even in my head. And Tuesday and Thursday are odd for some reason. But then, like, Saturday, Sunday, even to me. Even Steven.
I'm not sure if we know what even and odd numbers are anymore, is what that means. I'm just kidding.
Basically, we just make it up in our head and go with it.
Kind of. I guess so.
I'm fine with it.
Here's a fun question that I ask students when we're going back and reviewing, like, the basics of math. Mm-hmm. So is 0 an even number or an odd number or none of the above? What do you think?
Well, I feel like it's a trick question, so none of the above.
Oh, shoot. That's what a lot of students say.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's even.
Yes. There's that confidence thing.
Well,
right?
yeah, it would have to be even because one is odd, and if it's every other.
negative one is odd, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I won't get into this. I won't bore everybody with the details of that, but get into the math.
Well, that's good to know. It's a little tidbit.
Yeah.
That's on the test?
It can be.
Yeah.
It can be.
Sometimes.
They'll throw in some weird stuff, nomenclature type things every once in a while.
Those test makers.
Weirdos.
You never know. Well, we want to talk about managing expectations when it comes to the ACT today.
Yeah. I think this is an important topic.
It
right?
is. It is.
I feel like a lot of people, there's like two camps. Like we've gotten so many phone calls lately about parents with 7th graders that want to help their students prepare for the test. And oh my gosh.
That's really early.
That's really, really, really early.
Yeah.
Right? Considering most students in the U.S. don't even take an official test until senior year.
Oh boy.
Well, we would consider that probably a little bit late, right?
Right.
But then there's the other population where they just like, hey, I'm going to sign you up for this test, kiddo.
Good luck.
And you're going to go in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Just go do your best. And that's a thing too. And I think like with most things, moderation, something in the middle kind of makes
absolutely.
sense for almost all students.
Right.
Right?
Right. Exactly. So how do you prepare for the test? So that's one of the things that we want to talk about. Managing the expectations. The first kind of step is preparing for this specific test.
Yeah. So a lot of parents kind of intuitively kind of have this idea.
What's happening over there?
Got a little frog in my throat
A
there.
little tickle in the throat.
So a lot of parents kind of have this idea, and they're on the right track, where students need to have a baseline, kind of figure out kind of how they're doing,
Yep.
and then move forward from there.
Yep.
Now, the challenge is most families don't look for additional resources where they can take a free practice test, like a place like Get Smarter Prep. So they just throw their kid into the official test right off the bat.
Yeah.
They get that baseline, which in theory is a good idea, but in the long run, there are a lot of downsides to
Right.
that.
Because that's going to go to all the different colleges.
Yeah, colleges are going to expect every single ACT a student takes. Now, some will say, oh, you only have to submit your top score, but some will expect all of them. And
Yeah.
sometimes ACT or College Board will send all of your scores, which,
Right.
whether you want them to or not,
Right.
they're going to do it.
So come here, establish a baseline, get your free practice test.
Absolutely.
We offer them every Saturday.
Right.
Do it.
So getting that good baseline just allows you to create that roadmap, right? I mean, imagine trying to plan a road trip with your friends or
Back in
your
the
family.
day when you had
Back in the day.
to print off MapQuest.
MapQuest. Oh, yes. I was all about randmcnally.com.
Oh, I bet you were.
I don't know how to take that, actually. This is a fun tidbit. In 6th grade, there was an entire middle school geography bee, and I had never taken a
A
geography
geography
class.
bee?
Yeah.
Like a spelling bee?
Like a geography bee.
Okay.
So we had spelling bees too, but that was never my jam.
Okay.
Right? Which was another good story there, but I'll save that for another day.
The next episode.
There it is. So I ended up taking 3rd place.
Oh,
And it was
that's
really
pretty
weird
good.
for middle school, like 6th, 7th, and 8th. Like,
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised.
Yeah. So what,
Kinda
they just
weird.
gave you a map and you're like, what is this
No,
town?
they asked you different
What is this
questions.
city?
Like there was one, like if you're taking a train from here, traveling
Oh.
east at this speed, if you're there, and it was like
so it had
maybe
a little bit to do with math. That's why you liked
maybe
it so
a
much.
touch, but it was mostly like, hey, you're moving in this direction. Like, what city are you going to be in?
Yeah.
And it was world geography, so it wasn't even just U.S.
Oh, did
I felt
you
pretty
watch
good
Carmen
about that.
San Diego? I felt like if you
That was a
watched
big
Carmen
thing.
San Diego, that would really help you.
I was the kid on road trips that I'd stare at the atlas in
yeah.
the back seat for, like the entire trip.
Wow.
Like I just found that kind of stuff fascinating, right? I'm super weird.
I would look at the map and I'd be like, okay, how far do we have now? Oh, how far do we have now? I'd get my little Wheel of Fortune game.
I like
I'd
it.
play it. I'm really good at Wheel of Fortune.
I know you are,
So
but the listeners don't.
it's a fun fact.
So now they know.
Yeah. If you ever are applying to be on Wheel of Fortune and you want someone to be on your team, I will be on your team. I've
Is
tried out
the
before.
Ideal teammate.
Yeah, I would
like
be
it.
so excited. We could do like best friends week. We could just get to know each other really fast and I could be our best friend.
I like it.
I feel like it's a little bit of an overshare right now, but anyway,
cool.
that's how much I like Wheel of Fortune. That's what I would play
That's
in
the
the
thing.
back seat of the car when we were
Okay.
traveling.
That's fair.
Yeah. So,
So back to establishing a baseline, right?
yep.
So the roadmap analogy kind of went off on a tangent there. Sorry about that, everyone. But if you're trying to plan out that road trip, how do you know how long it's going to take or what roads you're going to take
Where
if
to
you don't know where you're
start.
starting?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
That's maybe the most important part of the whole road trip.
Right.
Where you're beginning.
Get your map.
So that analogy kind of is a good segue into the ACT, right? We just need to make sure that we know how to approach the process, and that starting point is the best place.
Right. I agree. And find something that works for you. So we have different prep methods that we offer here at Get
Yeah,
Smarter Prep,
sure.
but that doesn't mean it fits everyone.
Sure.
So just find something that works for you. It's going to fit into your schedule, no matter what that may be.
Yeah.
We just want you to be best prepared for this test.
Right. We do think that there are some hard, fast things that you need to be looking for with test prep, whether it's leading right up to an actual test date, right? these skills that are required for the ACT and SAT, students can lose them pretty quickly. So if students aren't progressing all the way up to the test date,
Yep.
what are they going to be doing? They're going to be regressing, right? Language is fun.
Yeah.
So they're just not going to be able to do their absolute best at that point.
Right.
So
It's kind of like the summer slide.
Yeah.
Only,
oh my gosh.
Just with a few weeks, actually.
Exactly. Right. You're exactly right. So we do recommend that piece. We also recommend that the prep is as customizable as possible, even in a small group, as long as the classes are arranged by scores.
Yep.
We think that can be a huge benefit for students, whether they're high or low or in the middle. It doesn't really matter. It's just the strategies and approach. The pace is going to be very different for
Right.
those students.
And you're going to be working with students that are scoring the similar.
Yeah, exactly.
Similar on the ACT.
Especially with the ACT, where so much of it comes down to how many questions should I actually be attempting in this section, and what does that look like for me? And if you're in there with somebody who's scoring 10 points higher or 10 points lower, that's going to look drastically different.
Right.
And the same advice is not going to translate well. In fact, it's probably going to either hurt you both or really severely hurt one of the two students.
Yeah.
So making sure you're customizing
totally
that
makes
piece, that's
sense.
important.
Right.
So we also, of course, along with setting that good baseline, again, setting good goals. Know where you're headed.
Yes.
Sometimes that changes. So sometimes I'm headed to see my sister in Illinois, but really the final destination is Chicago, because Chicago is a little bit cooler,
Right.
But again, have a good goal in mind. Otherwise, you're just kind of like going through the motions at that point.
Yeah. And every goal is going to be different for every student.
Everybody, right? Everybody has different expectations with regard to colleges and scholarship money and things like that. So it needs to be customized for their specific needs. And of course, everybody's starting at a different place. So making sure that we're really targeting those specific pieces, and we can kind of put together a good game plan from there.
Yep, absolutely. I love that.
And this is something else I want to throw out there, because a lot of people fall for this trap as they start comparing their scores to other people.
Oh, yeah.
And they just set them up for failure, right?
Yep, that always happens. Well, that happens in life no matter what. Right? But specifically on the ACT, I mean, if all of your friends are juniors and they're all taking this test, yeah, absolutely, they're all going to compare.
Right. I heard a comedian recently, and he was talking about like how it is a fail. And again, this is not what I advocate, but I thought it was humorous because it kind of fits this. And it was talking about how like people compare each other, and it's like it's gonna steal your joy, right? That idea,
Right.
But what if you only compare yourself to people who aren't as good as you?
Oh.
Whether it's sports or something, then it's going to build you up, right? But
That's true.
Obviously,
Well, my
that's
brother
not
got
how
a
it works.
13 and I got an 18,
Right.
so I'm doing great.
Boom. So making sure that you're setting goals based upon what you actually need and not what somebody else is talking about or saying. Because
Yeah.
we've talked about this before. There's so much score inflation that happens, whether it's the students wanting to kind of seem or feel smarter to their peers, or parents trying to brag and make
That
their
may be
kids sound
worse.
even better. Like it happens.
It does happen.
So take it for a grain of salt and focus on exactly what you need to achieve your goals.
I love that. Okay, that's how we start preparing for the test. What about what's the norm nationwide? I mean, we talk about kind of in your specific area quite a bit, but what about nationwide?
Yeah. So in the U.S. here, so let me back up. The ACT and SAT are basically on a national distribution of scores. So they're using that old bell curve that we all have seen and learned at one point in our lives, where almost 50% is right there in the middle, and it's the top of the curve, the bell. And then you have those like edges that like hardly anybody scores those scores, right? And that's going to be the extreme low scores and the extreme high scores.
Right.
And roughly 70% of students are going to be scoring between right around that 17 to 24 mark. I mean, that's 70% is a lot of students taking the ACT.
It is.
So if you're in that range, like, hey, guess what? You're normal.
Right.
Hip, hip, hooray.
You know what I just thought of?
What's that?
Like you hear stories in the news and on social media about students who score a perfect 36. Why don't you hear stories about the students who score really low, and like someone swoops in, like, hey, we're going to offer you this, or we're going to give you, test prep,
Yeah.
we should do that.
We could do that.
Yeah.
It's actually almost impressive. Usually when a student gets the absolute lowest scores, like they're in the bottom 1,500, kind of like 36 is the top 1,500. It's usually because they just didn't, like, they fell asleep and didn't bubble anything in.
Okay, I think my husband actually fell asleep on the ACT. He told me that once. It's like, what? How do you fall asleep? It's a big test.
It is a big test.
It's a lot of pressure.
That's
Anyway,
weird.
that's what I'm married to.
Aren't you lucky?
I'm the lucky duck in the room.
So, again, there's a lot of misconceptions about how the test is scored. And a lot of it just goes back to this national distribution, right? If a student, if an entire class of Algebra 2 students, everybody studied really hard for their test the next day, and everybody did really, really well, everybody could get an A.
Right.
True?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's how
That would
school
make
works.
sense.
That's how kind of generally things run. On the ACT and on the SAT with College Board, that's not how it works, right? No
Weird.
more than 6% of students who take the ACT will ever score a 30 or higher on the exam.
Yeah.
Never, right? So how a student does on the exam is based on how they do compared to all of their peers. So that's how they come up with these scores. So there are such things as really easy tests and more difficult tests.
Right, because you hear
and
that.
those in the middle, right?
But you don't know which one that it is.
never
I mean,
know.
you never know.
And it's funny, again, working with dozens and dozens of schools at a time, you'll hear completely conflicting ideas. Like one school A will say, hey, that June test, take it because it's so easy.
Right.
And school B will be like, avoid June, it's the worst. And it's just kind of amusing from our perspective because we know, and now everyone else knows, hey, guess what? It doesn't matter which test we're taking because our score is based upon our peers. And on top of that, they use an equating process. And I won't get into the nerdiness of it all, right?
Don't make me fall asleep over here.
But they do take into account not only everybody who takes it on your test date, which is hundreds of thousands of data points, but they're using the 11 tests prior to that as well, which now you're talking about millions and millions of comparison points. So if it's an easy test, okay. If it's a difficult test, okay.
Yep.
It doesn't matter because everybody got that more difficult test, and they're using that statistical model to figure out, like, oh, if you would have taken it on another test day and maybe it was a much more difficult test, well,
Still
who cares?
doesn't matter. Yeah.
It's still the same.
Yep.
Right.
That makes sense.
In fact, I tell my students I'd rather them have a really difficult test, just because I know that my students are generally more prepared than other students, so they're ready for those really, really tricky questions, which can just help set them apart from their peers that much more easily.
Yeah, good for them. No, I love that.
So anyway, so that's kind of the basics behind that.
Okay.
I mean, there's a whole chart on the testmakers websites on act.org or collegeboard.org, and you can kind of check that out. And it's just called the national distribution, or sometimes you can just type in percentile chart.
Right.
And you can kind of see the full breakdown of that and see kind of what each score really actually means, because we have a total misunderstanding as a culture of what those scores look like and what our expectations should be in that regard.
I love that. Okay. Very good. Thanks for explaining that to us. What about preparing for different situations? So many kids get flustered easily, right? I mean, I know I did. When I studied, I had to have, I was in my room, locked in my room, studying, reading a couple different times, going over the quizzes. I had to have complete silence. Other students, like other people that I know, some of my friends and my husband, he would have music on and it'd be loud. And I'm like, how are you concentrating right now? I don't understand that.
Yeah.
It was so foreign to me.
We would actually advocate the method of preparing like what you were doing, right? We want to make sure we're mimicking the actual environment. And on test day, there may be that kid with the sniffles in the room, or somebody tapping their foot,
oh man,
or something like that.
Would drive me nuts.
Awful. But generally speaking, the testing environment is a pretty controlled environment where you can't listen to music. There's not a lot of loud noises. There aren't a bunch of people that you can talk to in the middle of the test.
Can you even get up in the middle of the test?
So
what if you have to go to the bathroom?
It's strongly discouraged, and time does not stop.
Yeah.
Right?
Ugh.
So that's something to be aware of. So, for instance, if you're in the math section and you need to use the facilities, you can do it, but know that you're going to lose that time from the test itself, which could be a pretty big factor. But again, if you're just completely distracted, I was going to talk about this later. If you're completely distracted because you need to use the restroom, you're probably not going to do your best anyway. Right. Or so take that break, come back, give your full effort for that point from that point forward.
Yep. And another big thing, Apple Watches. I mean, smart watches.
Yeah, not allowed.
You can't have them.
No, they don't even allow phones in or anything like that.
Right.
So nothing that can communicate with the outside world, and
That
nothing
makes sense.
that beeps.
Yep.
Right?
It's a distraction.
Yeah, for you and for your peers. So you can have a watch, and sometimes those can be handy, kind of keep track of the time. Every classroom is supposed to. Again, I'm sure there is an exception to the rule, but every room is supposed to be equipped with a clock so students can kind of manage their own time.
Right.
Some proctors will write the start time and end time.
That would be
and
helpful.
Stuff like that on the board.
Yeah.
So it can be more easily managed in that regard.
And they give you a 5-minute warning
They
towards the end.
always give you a 5-minute warning.
Yep.
So that piece is a little bit different. And we've talked about it in the past. We don't really want to worry about the time so much as, hey, focus on the test. That's the test, not the time. That accuracy over completion is really, really important for students.
Right. So just make sure you're in the environment and you're present. Make sure you're not, getting distracted by anything you shouldn't be. Right? You shouldn't be. Everything should be pretty. Sit in your seat, get your pencil, get your calculator, make sure you have your pencil sharpened, your calculator,
ready.
battery is charged, everything.
Yeah. And this is funny. We talk about the batteries and calculators. Most calculators now, that you charge them like a phone. I don't know if you know. Yeah. How about that?
No, I had no idea.
Oh, wow. So again, make sure your calculator is charged, right?
That's nuts.
It's crazy how often students come in for tutorial sessions and then your calculator is just dead. And it's just like, okay, prior to the test, homework 1, charge your calculator.
Right, exactly.
So that's kind of an important little piece.
And just leave your phones in the car.
Yeah, that's what we generally recommend.
Yep.
There isn't really a good place other than that to keep them.
Right.
So
because it could be a different school, it could be a different setting than what you're normally used to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
So.
Okay. And then about yourself. I mean, prepare yourself, as in the night before the test. Get a good night's sleep. Don't go out with your friends late. Make sure you are prepared, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Print off your ACT ticket, your SAT ticket.
Yep.
Make sure you have that. Set that by the door. Charge your calculator.
Yeah.
Get your pencils.
Set yourself up for success, right?
Yes.
I mean, the good night's sleep thing, I want to touch on for a second, because a lot of people and a lot of parents will advocate like, oh, the Friday night before the test, make sure you get a good night's rest. But our sleep doesn't really work that way. Like our bodies, we need a little bit more time than that to adjust. And what I've seen studies show, like you need at least 3 days of consistent rest before your body is like
rested.
Back.
Yeah.
So like Wednesday night on, at least, that's when you need to be kind of averaging that 8 hours of sleep, or at least, right?
Or just attempt, like go in your room and lay down
rest.
at 10 o'clock at night.
Exactly.
Don't be out. Don't get off the internet.
Exactly.
Get off social media.
That's a big piece. Yep. The other piece that I keep seeing more and more is, and again, we take it for granted, is hydration, right? Like a lot of us, it's a big thing in our culture. Like we drink a lot of water comparatively to at least my youth anyway.
Oh yeah.
Right. So making sure that we're well hydrated, because sometimes we think of like, oh, if we're not 100% hydrated, if we're 99% hydrated, well, my brain's going to still be 99% effective, right? Like that seems...
You would seem.
It should be linear, right? It's not. Like you are not quite fully hydrated and your brain is at like 80%. Right?
Really?
It's crazy. It drops so quickly. And again, little things like that can make a big difference on
and
test
then you
days.
feel sluggish if you're not hydrated.
And you're sitting there for 4 hours. Like it's easy to feel that fatigue just simply because you're not hydrated.
Yeah. So make sure you're hydrated, but also use the restroom before you take the test.
Right.
So many things.
And during your break, right?
Right. So many things. And eat a healthy breakfast.
Yeah.
Right? Grab a breakfast bar at least. I mean, it's a long test.
Yeah. I recommend to our students that they don't go overboard. Like it's easy to do that. Like you hear eat a healthy breakfast and you don't usually eat breakfast.
Sausage,
and then all of a sudden you're going all out. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so full. I'm so uncomfortable. Like that can be a distraction too.
Right.
So don't go too far off your norm, but definitely make sure you eat something.
And maybe have a snack in between.
Oh, yeah. So there are certain things that we recommend that all students take with them on test day. And of course, their ticket, their ID, so that they can actually get into the test.
Yes.
And then making sure that they are taking their pencils, their calculator, their water, right? We just talked about hydration, and a snack.
Yep.
They won't allow you to have your water and your snack on your desk while you're testing.
Okay.
So you can't like continuously
have them, like,
snack
on the
or anything.
floor, like in your purse or something.
Kind of with your calculator, right?
Yep.
So everything will be kind of set away, but during the breaks, it's a great time to replenish yourself.
Okay.
Right? The other thing that I want to talk about with the break, so between the math section and the reading section of the ACT, students are given 10 to 15 minutes where they can kind of just decompress a little bit, use the restroom, whatever they need to do.
And they need to.
I've been reading an interesting book by an author, I believe his name is Daniel Pink, and it's called When, and it's all about like the timing of like how, like the flow of our day, and like when are we at our best, and when do we start getting sluggish, and it talks a lot about this, how like leading up to lunchtime we just are just like dead, right? Like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 9:30, like we're
Fresh.
good, we're on it, right? We're doing our absolute best.
Let's do this.
And then you hit your break, and if you don't replenish, if you don't wake yourself back up with some food and some water and some good conversation, we're social beings,
Yeah,
right?
we are.
If we don't have some kind of interaction and some kind of positive interaction, it's
that's a
good to
point.
have that positive interaction, like with your friends talking about the test, I guess.
Yeah.
But take your mind off that.
Yep.
There have been so many studies that have talked about, like, even in a workplace, if you set aside 5 minutes an hour and you kind of get up and move around and you stretch and you walk, you drink some
good
water,
for you.
you talk to somebody not about work.
Right.
Holy crap, your work is so much more productive throughout the rest of the
that's
day
a good
because
point.
you're doing those little things. And the same thing holds true for students. Maybe even more so because adolescents have very different needs than adults.
Yeah. And
So-
they're not adults yet. So.
And they're not adults quite yet. They're kids.
Right. Sometimes I think they are, but not quite yet.
Not yet. So
Yeah.
making sure that we're kind of treating it kind of like game day. We have a good game plan going in, and we're utilizing all of these different aspects, whether it's during the break or before the test or whatever else.
Right. And let's talk about confidence, because I think confidence is key.
Yeah.
You know, you've prepared all these different ways, and now it's game time, as you say. So let's get in there. Let's be confident with our answers. We've studied. We've done everything that we should have already done.
Right.
And now it's time.
Now's the time to show off all the hard work that you've put into it, right? Now, again, we don't want to be overconfident,
True.
but I'd rather be overconfident than underconfident.
Okay,
to be
good
honest.
point.
You know what I mean? Because we see it a lot where students kind of start doubting themselves and they will go back and start changing answers. Yikes. Right?
So on this test, is it like, you always say, follow your instinct, follow your gut. Is that the majority true on the test?
Generally, like we recommend that unless you are 100% sure that you like made a mistake, like you read the question incorrectly, you go back and look over your math work and you're like, oh shoot,
that
I
was a
multiplied
mistake.
instead of divided, like the clear mistake, and there's a trap answer, right? Then you can change, like that is a-okay. But if you're just like, oh, I did this problem before and now I'm going back and I'm looking at it again and I think maybe it's this other one, don't change it.
Do not change
Right.
it.
In most cases, students are moving from a correct answer to an incorrect, or it could be from an incorrect to an incorrect, right?
Right.
But
True.
Generally, it's moving away from a correct answer.
Okay.
Much
Very
more
good.
than going to a correct answer.
Right.
Much more frequently. Probably 3 to 1 from our experience.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
pretty
Okay, so just
interesting.
keep the answer.
Yeah, just roll with it.
Yeah, just keep on going. Keep on going. Perfect. Anything else you want to talk about managing expectations when it comes to the ACT?
Yeah, again, that game plan, just knowing like I'm leading up to the test date, don't change the plan last minute. You started laughing. I shared a story this morning. There was a student who was scheduled to take the most recent ACT, and on the Friday before, they changed the plan. And they're going to take it 2 weeks later through another means that most students don't have, right?
Right.
But just throwing a wrench in the plan last minute, probably not going to set him up for success. He was on pace to see a huge improvement, a really great. He was just on top of things. He was ready for it. And now with these extra 2 weeks, I'm just nervous.
Yeah.
And we've offered some
Here comes
services
that
and
summer
opportunities for
slide.
them,
Yeah.
but I just don't think he's going to do quite as well.
Right.
Nah, he could surprise me.
Yeah,
he
let's
could
hope.
absolutely surprise me.
Absolutely.
I would take it. but the odds are not in his favor now, unfortunately.
Aw.
So
And you can also come in for office hours. We
Yeah.
always offer
Yeah.
those to our students.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. But again, we like to study right up until that test
Yep.
date. Okay.
the other quick thing that I want to kind of bring up, if you are panicking in the middle of the test or you're feeling uncomfortable,
Yeah.
like take that break, get up and leave the room if you absolutely have to. Like, again, I talked about it earlier. If you have to use the restroom and you're distracted, like, you're not going to do your best work there anyway.
That's true.
Right? So take that minute. Or again, if you are just starting to feel a little bit anxious during the test,
Yeah.
deep breaths, right? So with my students, I like to do a short little exercise where they literally will close their eyes, and sometimes they feel awkward about doing that. But everybody's focused on their test, so who cares, right?
Right.
Just close your eyes. Take a really good deep breath in through your nose, as deep as you can. Hold it for 5 seconds.
Okay.
Count out the time nice and
Okay.
slowly, right? And then exhale completely. Now, you
Okay.
can't be super noisy with this by any means. Can you imagine, like, everybody
kick you
doing this
out.
all of a sudden, right? But making sure that we kind of just reset a little bit. There's a good feedback mechanism that helps us reset a little bit there.
It's a good tip.
Even if it's 15 or 20 seconds, like,
Yeah.
again, if it
It's
gets
not
us
going to kill you on the
refocused,
test, right? I mean, it's going to take a little bit of time, but overall, it's going to help you.
Right. Even if we sacrifice one question, if we're
Right.
now focused on the remaining 20 questions,
Yeah.
and we get 5 more correct because of that, I mean, that's a trade-off I would take every day.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Good advice.
Anyway.
Well, thanks for discussing this with us. We just want our students to do the best, and managing those expectations are a big part of the test. So if you have any further questions or anything that we can help you out with, just let us know.
yeah, thanks for joining us, guys.
Happy birthday, Caleb.
Oh boy, 37.
Woohoo! Thanks for listening to the Simply Smarter podcast with Caleb and Jill. If you like our show and want to know more, check out our blog at getsmarterprep.com or subscribe to the podcast to hear us talk about all things ACT related. Join us next week as we discuss what measuring success looks like when it comes to testing, grades, and the future of college admissions.